Sul Sul. Hey guys. That's the only thing I know how to say in Simlish. Don't expect me to say anything else. For the purposes of this video, I feel like it should be noted that the word gay does not seem to exist in Simlish, unlike the word bingo or even the sentence I am so bored. I am so bored is oo shamu ralapu. But you're not here for a Simlish lesson. I promise this is all relevant. So let's just get right into it. The success of The Sims as a game and as a franchise cannot be overstated. Known for many years as the best-selling game of all time, The Sims created one of the most popular genres in the gaming world, the simulation genre. Well, that's not fair, it popularized it. By 2018, The Sims 4 had been bought by over 10 million people. Is it possible that The Sims being in the public consciousness helped to contribute to the debate of same-sex marriage? Could it be that a generation that was raised being able to be actively queer even in a virtual playground was retroactively affected by something that might be seen as inconsequential as a video game? On a personal level, I think so. Your Honor, I posit that The Sims made us all a little bit gay. Attraction in The Sims. Before I begin discussing the attraction system in The Sims 4, let me take you back to the very beginning. In Simon Parkin's 2014 article in The New Yorker, he discusses the very first same-sex kiss found in the original Sims 1. In the article, Parkin states that the developers discussed and ultimately decided to leave same-sex relationships outside of the game's code. The AI code was handed to a new game designer using an old spec stock during a transitional period. Barrett, the game designer, didn't know about the developer's decision and was in charge of taking care of how the Sims were going to interact with each other. So he wrote the code, and it did not exclude same-sex relationships. During a live demonstration of what the game could do in E3, two female Sims decided to kiss each other in front of the press. While that certainly made something of a splash, the game didn't really cause that much of a controversy. While the debate about same-sex marriage was heating up in the world in the early 2000s, the release of the original Sims game largely predated when it came into the public consciousness. The history of same-sex marriage in the US. So to clarify, the game did not predate same-sex marriage as an issue, rather it predated it as one of the issues, a partisan topic that would become one of the defining features of the culture wars. According to Gallup, the support for same-sex marriage grew from 27% in 1996 to 37% in 2006. By 2010, support for same-sex marriage was approximately 44%. As the discussion grew and public opinion changed, so did the game. Now, it's important to know that in the original The Sims game, same-sex Sims could move in together. They were not able to marry, and there was no formal relationship between the Sims in the game. While the romantic interactions themselves might have been ahead of their time, Sims were not able to be in committed same-sex relationships, and when adopting a child, would have been considered the only parent. In The Sims 2, this changed a little bit. While same-sex Sims are able to have formalized relationships with their partners, these differ from different sex Sims. While a female and a male Sim can't get married, Sims of the same sex can enter a civil union. These couples are also able to adopt children together. At the time The Sims 2 was released, which was 2004, the only place that had legalized same-sex marriage was Massachusetts. In The Sims 3, same-sex couples are treated almost entirely the same as different-sex couples. If the player has Oasis Landing installed, the Sim can go to the future and pay to engineer a baby together regardless of their partner's sex. The Sims 4, which came out in 2014, marriage also functions similarly. Any Sim can marry any other Sim regardless of that Sim's gender, but there are also more options, including whether a Sim can get pregnant or get another Sim pregnant. The player can change a Sim's frame, whether they sit down to pee, and change a Sim's clothes filter. It is important to note that this did not come with the original Sims 4 game. While The Sims 4 came out in 2014, the LGBTQ+ update, which was done in conjunction with the It Gets Better project, came out in 2019. Between this time and the update, the United States finally legalized same-sex marriage with their landmark decision. The controversy. Of course, as the debate about same-sex marriage grew around the world, things got heated, even for the game. In 2018, The Sims Freeplay, which is the mobile counterpart of the game, got banned in China, Saudi Arabia, Oman, Kuwait, and Egypt. In 2014, The Sims 4 was given an adults-only rating in Russia. While researching this video, I found many oblique references to the controversy the game had originally caused, but I could not find any sources. It is safe to say, however, that some people were less than impressed by the way that The Sims handled same-sex relationships from the beginning. Why this matters. Okay, so you've been listening to me talk about how far ahead of its time The Sims was with queer issues, and in a lot of ways it was. But to understand my maxim here, the idea that The Sims wasn't just ahead of its time, but someone instrumental in changing the minds of people who were on the fence about same-sex issues, we have to speak about identity. From The Sims to The Sims 4, the focus on players has changed. Hardcore players have turned into casual players. This is important to note because the game has become more and more accessible as it has gotten more and more popular. The Proteus effect is an idea posited by Stanford University researchers, in which players both act more in line with their virtual avatar and they act out personal fantasies because they are in a risk-free atmosphere. It doesn't take much research to know that The Sims has always been a safe haven for LGBTQ+ gamers. A writer for MinchMedia.org spoke to 13 queer gamers, and while their experiences were varied and vastly different, they all share the same defining feature. Growing up with The Sims allowed these gamers to create worlds in which they could be queer without fear of repercussion, as well as learn things about themselves that they were yet to be aware of. A few people discussed making queer characters before they realized that they were queer themselves. So in a way, the game must have known about their identity before they did. Because of how the game operates, queer simmers were held up to the same standards as their non-queer counterparts. It didn't matter if the PDA was with the same sex or a different sex partner, Mrs. Crumblebottom was still going to get her panties in a twist about it. And there was something liberating about being on an entirely even playing field, even if that environment was, in fact, entirely fictional. The Sims. Capitalism, but make it fun. The Sims, while inherently a capitalist game, technically starts every sim with the same resources as every other sim. There is no gender pay gap discrimination. The idea that you must, of course, buy more expensive things in order to be happy frequently comes into play. Better beds means Sims are more well-rested, which means they have more time to skill up, which means that they can get promoted in their careers more quickly. According to Miguel Sicart's essay, Family Values, Computer Game, and The Sims can be understood as a subtle system for spreading ideology of corporative late-stage capitalism. In the same essay, the researcher mentioned that while they could make queer Sims and Sims with sociological disparities, it was not possible to make a misfit. A Sim must fit into the society around them in order to have a happy life, though of course it is up to the player if the Sim has a happy life at all. In this way, we can assume that the Sim creates a truly equitable society, provided that the Sims themselves can adapt to the lifestyle that the game has as a framework, which is to say, any Sim, queer or non-queer, can be happy as long as they can adapt to the capitalist society in which all Sims live. It's a Sims life for us. If you're up to date with The Sims, you'll probably know about the controversy leading up to the skin tone update. Many prominent black Simmers spoke out about the lack of diversity in skin tones, not to mention the issues with the Sims' textured hair. The considerable pushback that the black and POC community had to create in order to have their voices heard, so that EA would create Sims who look like them, was not inconsiderable, and in truth it stands in a stark contrast with the game's ability and care when it comes to creating queer Sims. As Jackson said in their excellent Vice.com article, when speaking about black Simmers, in order to make Sims that look like them, they have to download or make an expansion pack's worth of content. It all starts with skin tones. From launch in 2014, it was clear that The Sims 4 did not make enough skin tones, and not nearly enough ones to make Sims with dark skin. The Sims has been a champion of diversity and inclusion within the video game industry, especially when it comes to LGBT representation. But when it comes to black Sims, it's always been lacking. In the article, Jackson also states that black Simmers were frustrated because they felt like they weren't listened to until white Simmers with prominent platforms were calling for EA to change this. And really, I think this leaves us with a question. Why does EA need to be pressured now that they have been at the forefront for change for so long? It doesn't appear that they have struggled with creating LGBTQ representation, though they've been a bit late with The Sims 4, and I think it's fair to say that this was in large part due to their own workforce. After all, the developer who coded the same-sex kiss was a gay man, and that made a difference in how the game was played. A game which is largely formative for a generation and will probably continue to be, needs to do better. If anything, the game has always been at the forefront of social change, and it must do better. Because we know that it can. I don't think it's particularly surprising that a game became incidentally, perhaps revolutionarily queer, but I also think it's very important to figure out where it's failing and why. When a game has the power to change the world, we shouldn't have to change the game. I want to hear about your experience. What did you think? Did it help you explore your sexuality, your gender expression? Let me know in the comments. Thanks.